Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, today we are called to reflect on the profound truths found in the words of G.K. Chesterton, one of the great Christian thinkers of the 20th century. In his work Orthodoxy, written in 1908, Chesterton offers us a vision that continues to resonate with great relevance in our time. He reminds us that tradition does not mean that the living are dead, but that the dead are alive. This powerful phrase invites us to value and keep alive the traditions and teachings that have been passed down to us, recognizing that there is spiritual and moral wealth in what has been transmitted from generation to generation. We are living in times of great change and uncertainty, where the pressures of the modern world often draw us away from our spiritual and cultural roots. However, Chesterton's message challenges us to reclaim these traditions, to embrace them as sources of strength and wisdom, face the challenges of today. Just as in 1908, when Chesterton wrote his works in a world undergoing transformation, we too face a context that demands renewed faithfulness to our roots and to the eternal truth, Christ. I invite each of you not only to reflect on this message, but also to take action. Together, let us rediscover and reaffirm the traditions that sustain us, strengthening our faith and our community. Now is the time to honor our spiritual legacy and to live the truth of the gospel more intensely in our daily lives. May this message inspire you to be a living flame of faith and hope, capable of illuminating the path for many. In a world that seems to revolve around novelty, where the shine of what is new often overshadows the value of what is old, we are constantly tempted to abandon the things that connect us to our roots. This is a reality that encompasses all aspects of life, from the technology we use to the ideologies we adopt. However, the writer G.K. Chesterton offers us a radically different perspective on the relationship between the new and the old, reminding us of the intrinsic value of the traditions we have inherited. Chesterton, one of the greatest defenders of paradox, argued that true innovation lies not in disregarding the past, but in valuing it. In his work Orthodoxy, he warns us against the danger of rejecting traditions simply because they are old. He says, "Tradition means giving votes to the most obscure of all classes, our ancestors. It is the democracy of the dead." This thought leads us to reflect on the importance of the lessons passed down through generations, lessons that contain the accumulated wisdom of centuries. In the frenzy of modernity, where we are bombarded by an avalanche of information and opinions, we are often led to believe that the new is automatically better. The idea that everything must be renewed, remade, or reinvented seems to dominate the zeitgeist of our era. But Chesterton challenges us to question this premise. He suggests that by distancing ourselves from traditions, we risk losing touch with what truly defines us. Instead of freeing us, abandoning traditions may lead to a sense of disorientation and loss of identity. Consider, for example, family traditions. In many cultures, traditions are passed down from generation to generation, creating a deep sense of continuity and belonging. These traditions can be small things, like a special meal prepared on holidays, or larger rituals like family gatherings or religious celebrations. Each of these traditions carries with it not only memories, but also values, teachings, and a connection to something greater than ourselves. However, in a world where haste and convenience often replace care and consideration, traditions can be seen as obstacles to progress. Families gather less around the table, the stories of ancestors are told less frequently, and the rituals that once brought cohesion and meaning to family life are often neglected. Chesterton, with his unique vision, reminds us that true innovation lies not in replacing these traditions, but in renewing them and living them with new vigor. He stated that tradition is the extension of democracy through time, a phrase that highlights the importance of giving voice to those who came before us. Tradition, then, is not a burden that ties us to the past, but an anchor that gives us stability in a constantly changing world. When we respect and keep traditions alive, we are participating in a continuous conversation with past generations, allowing their voices to resonate in our lives and decisions. The Bible also offers us a perspective on the value of what is old. In Proverbs 22:28, we read, "Do not remove the ancient landmark which your fathers have set." This passage exhorts us to preserve the traditions and teachings that have been handed down to us, recognizing that there is wisdom and value in following the paths established by our ancestors. Therefore, instead of being swept away by the allure of the new at any cost, perhaps it is time to reconsider what we are leaving behind. The traditions and family values passed down to us are not merely relics of the past. They are foundations that help us navigate the complexities of the present and build a more solid and meaningful future. Chesterton invites us to see the old, not as something obsolete, but as a treasure that should be guarded and celebrated. For it is there that we find the roots of our true identity and purpose. By reconnecting with traditions, we are not only honoring the past, but also creating a richer and more meaningful future for ourselves and for the generations to come. After all, as Chesterton wisely observed, anything worth doing is worth doing well. And few things are more worth preserving and experiencing than the traditions that connect us to each other and to the best of our shared heritage. We live in an era marked by rapid and constant change. The certainties of yesterday seem to fade amid the whirlwind of new ideas, technologies, and ways of life. Modernity has brought with it a series of advances that have undeniably transformed our lives for the better. However, this same modernity has also generated a feeling of uncertainty and instability, as if we are always trying to reach something beyond our grasp. In this context, traditions emerge as a firm anchor, point of reference that helps us navigate the turbulent waters of modern life without losing sight of what is essential. G.K. Chesterton, in his profound wisdom, understood the value of traditions as a foundation for stability and continuity. He believed that in a world where everything seems to be in constant flux, traditions offer a sense of belonging and a connection to something greater and more enduring than our individual lives. Chesterton wrote that tradition does not mean that the living are dead, but that the dead are alive. With this powerful phrase, he reminds us that traditions are not dead relics of the past, living flames that light our way, providing warmth and guidance amid the darkness of uncertainty. Traditions, whether religious, cultural, or familial, play a vital role in our identity. They connect us to the generations that came before us and give us a solid foundation on which to build our lives. Chesterton believed that traditions are, in fact, a form of democracy through time, allowing the voices of our ancestors to continue to be heard and respected. In his words, tradition is only democracy extended through time. It is the extension of the franchise. It is the right of the dead to vote. This perspective offers us a way to see traditions not as a burden or imposition, but as a valuable inheritance entrusted to. However, in our modern society, traditions are often viewed as obsolete or restricted. We are encouraged to break with the past, to abandon the practices and values that sustained our ancestors. This attitude, though understandable in a world that values innovation and progress, can leave us disoriented and disconnected. Chesterton warned of the danger of a society that despises its traditions. He knew that without these roots, we risk losing ourselves in a sea of relativism and rampant individualism. He argued that the man who lives for the future is a skeptic. The man who lives for tradition is a believer. For Chesterton, traditions are a testimony of faith and trust in truths that have withstood the test of time. The anchor of traditions is not a weight that prevents us from moving forward, but a support that allows us to do so safely and steadily. Traditions remind us of who we are and where we came from, providing a solid foundation to face the challenges of the present and the future. In a world where everything seems ephemeral and transient, traditions offer continuity and permanence, a thread that connects us to humanity as a whole. Chesterton saw traditions as an expression of the best of our humanity, a way of preserving what is truly valuable and passing on the lessons we have learned over the centuries. He believed that true freedom is not found in rejecting the past, but in learning from it and integrating it into our lives in a meaningful way. The modern man thinks that he loses something, time, chiefly, when he does not do things quickly, yet he does not know what to do with the time he gains, except to kill it, Chesterton observed. This reflection calls us to reconsider our relationship with time and with traditions, and to recognize that true progress is not measured by the speed of change, but by the depth of our connection with what truly matters. Ultimately, Traditions serve as an anchor that keeps us steady amid the storm of modernity. They offer us stability in times of change and connect us to a legacy that transcends time. By honoring our traditions, we find strength, wisdom, and a sense of continuity that helps us face the challenges of the present with confidence and hope. Chesterton saw the family as the fundamental unit of society, the nucleus where virtues are cultivated and where true social stability emerges. In an increasingly fragmented world, where individuality is exalted at the expense of the collective, the concept of family has become, for many, something outdated or even oppressive. However, it is precisely within the family that we find true refuge, the space where we can be authentic, where we experience unconditional love, and where we learn the deepest lessons about responsibility, sacrifice, and empathy. Chesterton once wrote that the home is the only anarchical institution that is at the same time the most enduring. With this, he was not suggesting that the family is a place of chaos, but rather a place of genuine freedom. In the family, we find the freedom to be ourselves, to express ourselves authentically, without the masks we are often forced to wear in the outside world. However, this freedom comes with a deep sense of responsibility, as the well-being of each family member is inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole. In our modern society, there is a growing tendency to see the family as an obsolete institution, something that can be easily replaced by other forms of relationship or by a life centered on individualism. But as Chesterton reminds us, true freedom can only be experienced within certain limits. The family, with all its imperfections and challenges, is the place where we learn the importance of living for something greater than ourselves. It is within the family that we are taught to value others, put the needs of others ahead of our own, and to understand the true meaning of sacrifice. In contemporary society, we see more and more people moving away from family ties in search of personal fulfillment. However, this pursuit often results in loneliness, isolation, and a sense of emptiness that nothing seems to fill. Chesterton observed that the man who destroys the family destroys the world. This statement is a powerful reminder that the family is not just a social construct, but a spiritual and emotional reality that sustains society as a whole. Without the family, we lose our sense of belonging, our connection to past generations, and ultimately, our place in the world. Moreover, the family is where traditions are passed from one generation to the next. These traditions, which may seem small or insignificant to outsiders, are actually the foundations upon which we build our identity. Chesterton believed that tradition is not a dead weight we must carry, but a living wealth that connects us with the past and gives us the wisdom to face the future. He wrote, "Tradition is the democracy of the dead. It refuses to submit to that arrogant oligarchy of those who merely happen to be walking around." Through the family, traditions are kept alive, and it is through them that we find continuity and meaning in a constantly changing world. The Bible also emphasizes the importance of the family as a sacred institution. In Ephesians 6:1-4, Paul instructs, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land." This commandment not only reinforces the importance of respect and obedience within the family structure, also suggests that individual and collective well-being is linked to the maintenance of strong family ties. In a world that often pushes us away from our roots, it is vital to remember the immeasurable value of the family. Family is not just the place where we start our journey, but also the place to which we can always return, regardless of the circumstance. In his words, Chesterton challenges us to see the family as more than a social convention. He invites us to recognize it as the beating heart of society, where true love and freedom are experienced. By valuing and nurturing our family ties, we are strengthening the very fabric of society and planting the seeds of a more hopeful and connected future. Chesterton was a master at seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, a skill he believed was essential for a full and meaningful life. He challenged his readers to reconsider the value of simple things, arguing that true revolution does not occur through grand gestures or drastic changes, but in the rediscovery of the value of small traditions and daily rituals that shape our existence. In the modern world, where we are constantly bombarded by stimuli and expectations, it is easy to underestimate the power of small action. However, Chesterton reminds us that a man may travel around the world in search of what he needs and return home to find it. This return to simple things is not a step backward, but a rediscovery of something that has always been with us, something we may have neglected in our haste to move forward. Consider, for example, a simple family meal. In many households, the dinner table is the only place where everyone gathers, even if just for a brief moment, to share not only food but also stories, concerns, and joys. Chesterton saw these occasions as sacred moments where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. He believed that family life, with all its challenges and routines, was the most durable of institutions, and that within it lay the true meaning of community and belonging. The small traditions we maintain in our families, from birthday celebrations to the way we decorate our homes for holidays, carry a significance that goes far beyond the obvious. Chesterton warns us that the world will perish not for lack of wonders, but for lack of wonder. This quote makes us reflect on how our perception of things can transform the reality around us. What may seem like a common routine to some can be a ritual full of meaning and memories for others. In our constant quest for new and exciting experiences, we often neglect what is familiar. We live in an era that values the new and the different, where being innovative is often seen as the only way to stand out. However, Chesterton invites us to consider that the true secret to a rich and satisfying life is not in constantly seeking the new, but in appreciating the value of what we already have. The extraordinary is not something we need to discover in distant lands or radical experiences. It is present in the small things, in the traditions we follow without question, in the moments we share with those we love. The revolution that Chesterton proposes is not a revolution of external changes, but an internal transformation, a change in the way we see the world around us. When we begin to see the simple things in life with renewed eyes, we discover that they contain a depth of meaning that we often overlook. Family traditions, daily rituals, and even the most common tasks can become sources of joy and inspiration. This is the power of small traditions. They connect us to the past, anchor us in the present, and prepare us for the future. When we participate in these traditions, we are, in a way, reaffirming our identity, both individually and collectively. We are saying that these things matter, that they have value, not because they are grand or spectacular, precisely because they are small and familiar. By rediscovering the value of daily traditions, we find a new source of strength and inspiration. We do not need great changes to transform our lives. We only need a new perspective on what we already have. Chesterton encourages us to see the world not as a place where we constantly need to search for something new, but as a treasure already full of wonders, waiting to be rediscovered. It is in this rediscovery of the small things that we find the true secret to a full life, rich in meaning and connected to what is most important. We live in an era marked by the irony of hyperconnectivity. Our devices keep us permanently connected to the world, offering an incessant stream of information, updates, and entertainment. Yet, paradoxically, this same connectivity often leaves us more disconnected than ever from the people who truly matter in our lives. Family life and traditions, once the pillars that sustained us in times of uncertainty, now find themselves constantly threatened by a culture of convenience, speed, and superficiality. Chesterton, with his keen insight into human nature, foresaw the dangers of this disconnection, warning of the fragility of the human soul when it loses its deepest roots. Chesterton, in his timeless wisdom, observed that a man may have the largest house in the world, but it is useless unless he has a corner in which he can feel at ease. This statement goes beyond a simple critique of materialism. It touches on the essence of the human need for belonging and security. The home, for Chesterton, was not just a physical space, but an emotional and spiritual refuge. A place where identity is formed and reinforced through traditions and family relationships. When we disconnect from these foundations, we lose more than just old customs. we lose an essential part of ourselves. Contemporary culture, with its emphasis on efficiency and instant gratification, encourages us to seek quick fixes for complex problems. Family meals are replaced by quick dinners in front of the TV or the phone. Deep conversations give way to short and superficial text messages. And family rituals, which once marked the rhythm of our lives, are often seen as outdated or unnecessary. But by giving up these practices, we not only miss the opportunity to connect deeply with those we love, but we also distance ourselves from a richer and fuller understanding of what it means to be human. Chesterton saw family traditions as a source of stability and meaning in an increasingly chaotic world. He believed that these traditions served as a constant reminder that we belong to something greater than ourselves, a community that extends through time and space, linking us to past and future generations. In one of his essays he writes, "Tradition does not mean that the living are dead, but that the dead are alive." In other words, keeping family traditions alive is keeping alive the presence of those who came before us, allowing their wisdom and experiences continue guiding our lives. The disconnection from family and traditions is, in many ways, a symptom of a deeper disconnection. The disconnection from ourselves. Without the anchors that traditions provide, we are cast adrift in a sea of uncertainties and superficialities. We become vulnerable to the passing currents of popular culture, losing the ability to discern what is truly important. Chesterton recognized that true freedom is not found in rejecting traditions, but in the ability to root oneself in them, thus finding a solid foundation on which to build our lives. The danger of disconnection is real and palpable. When we distance ourselves from traditions in family life, we deprive ourselves of experiences that humanize us and connect us deeply with others. It is in the family that we learn the most important lessons about love, sacrifice, and responsibility. It is in traditions that we find a sense of continuity and belonging. By ignoring them, we risk becoming mere spectators of our own lives, unable to find meaning in a world that values the ephemeral and the superficial. Therefore, in a time where disconnection seems to be the norm, the rescue of family traditions is an act of resistance and reconnection. By rediscovering the value of these practices, we not only reconnect with our own history, but also with the essence of what it means to be truly human. Let us then find the courage to resist the pressures of modernity and value what truly matters: the people we love and the traditions that sustain us. In doing so, we will discover that far from being restrictive, these traditions set us free, allowing us to live richer, deeper, and more meaningful lives. The wisdom of the ancients is like a deep river that flows silently beneath the bustling surface of our modern lives. We are often tempted to ignore this current, distracted by the shine of novelties and the incessant noise of contemporary demand. However, when we allow ourselves to dive into the waters of this river, we discover a source of knowledge and guidance that transcends the circumstances of any era. G.K. Chesterton, tireless advocate of traditions and cultural heritage, saw in the wisdom passed down from generation to generation an invaluable treasure. He believed that in a world that often despises the past, tradition serves as a powerful reminder that the new is not necessarily better, and that many of the answers we seek for today's problems have already been explored and understood by those who came before us. For Chesterton, tradition is the extension of democracy through time. It means giving a vote to the most obscure of all classes, our ancestors. This quote captures the essence of what it means to value the wisdom of the ancients. It is about recognizing that past generations have something to teach us, something that we are willing to listen and guide us amid the uncertainties of the present. Today we live in a society that often privileges youth and innovation, relegating experience and tradition to the background. This is reflected in the way we often dismiss the advice of our parents and grandparents, considering it outdated or irrelevant. However, this attitude deprives us of a rich source of knowledge. Family traditions, for example, are not just meaningless rituals, but practices that carry with them centuries of accumulated wisdom. They represent the solutions our ancestors found to face challenges similar to those we face today. Chesterton saw traditions as something alive, not as relics of the past, but as practices that continue to shape and offer us guidance. In one of his writings, he argues that the dead should have a voice in our society, as they are not limited by the prejudices of fashion or the pressure of the times. In other words, traditions are a way of including the voices of the past in our present decision, ensuring that our culture and values are not defined solely by passing trends, but by enduring principles that have withstood the test of time. The Bible, which is itself a compilation of ancient wisdom, reinforces the importance of honoring traditions and learning from past generations. In Proverbs 22:28, we find the guidance. Do not remove the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. This verse reminds us that the traditions and teachings of the past are landmarks, reference points that help us navigate a constantly changing world. They connect us to something greater than ourselves, a historical continuity that gives us identity and purpose. The danger of disregarding this wisdom is that we may find ourselves lost, without a solid foundation upon which to build our lives. In a society that values novelty above all else, it is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the past has nothing to offer us. But as Chesterton reminds us, each generation is converted by the saint who most contradicts it. The saints, the wise, and the ancestors who shaped our traditions often challenge us precisely because their truths are timeless and contradict the fashions of the present. By reconnecting with the wisdom of the ancients, we are not only honoring the past, but also building a more solid future. The traditions we have inherited are like roots that anchor us, allowing us to grow and flourish, regardless of the storms that may arise. They offer us a firm foundation in a constantly transforming world, and remind us that while the world may change, certain principles are eternal. Ultimately, what Chesterton and biblical wisdom teach us is that true wisdom is not found only in new ideas or the latest trends, but also in the lessons passed down from generation to generation. By valuing this wisdom, we find not only guidance for our own lives, but also a deep connection to history and humanity as a whole. May we, therefore, rediscover and embrace this wisdom, allowing it to guide us on our path, day and always. In the fast-paced rhythm of the modern world, we are often led to believe that progress can only be achieved by abandoning what is old. Technology advances, social paradigms shift, and new ideologies emerge, suggesting that to be modern, we must break with the past. However, this mindset can deprive us of something essential, a profound sense of belonging and hope that our traditions and families offer. Chesterton, with his characteristic insight, recognized that although the world is always changing, there are values that are eternal and unshakable. He once stated, "The most extraordinary thing in the world is an ordinary man, an ordinary woman, and their ordinary children." Chesterton's view of family and traditions as sources of extraordinary beauty and meaning stands in stark contrast to the modern view that often considers them outdated or limiting. Instead of seeing the family as an outdated institution, Chesterton invites us to see it as a refuge, a sacred community where souls find rest and renewal. It is in the warmth of the home, in the repetition of family rituals, that we find true identity and purpose, something that the external world, with all its distractions, rarely offers. Family traditions, however simple, carry an emotional and spiritual weight that goes far beyond what can be seen on the surface. When we sit down to a family meal, for example, we are not just sharing food, we are cultivating a space of belonging, where each person is valued, where stories are exchanged, and where love is manifested through simple yet deeply significant acts. In an age where so many people feel disconnected and lonely, traditions offer emotional anchorage, a reminder that we are part of something greater than ourselves. The rescue of these traditions is also a rescue of hope. Amid chaos and uncertainty, traditions offer us constancy, a stability that the external world cannot provide. They remind us that no matter how turbulent life may become, there is always a place we can return to, a place where we are known and loved. This is one of the reasons why Chesterton saw traditions not as chains that bind us to the past, but as bridges that connect us to the future. He understood that by keeping traditions alive, we are actually planting seeds of hope for future generations. Moreover, traditions connect us with the accumulated wisdom of our ancestors. Each ritual, each custom, carries with it the lessons learned by those who came before us. When we participate in these traditions, we are, in a way, dialoguing with the past, listening to the voices of those who have already faced life's challenges and found ways to overcome them. This connection gives us perspective, helps us see that the problems we face today are not new, but part of the universal human experience. And most importantly, it gives us hope that just as our ancestors overcame their difficulties, we too can overcome ours. Chesterton, with his robust optimism, firmly believed that the world is a beautiful place, full of wonders that can only be fully appreciated when viewed in the light of tradition and faith. He reminds us that true renewal does not come from rejecting what is old, from rediscovering its value and applying it in new ways to our lives. When we allow traditions to guide our actions and decisions, we are not merely preserving the past. We are building a firmer, more purposeful, and meaningful future. Therefore, as we look to the future, we should not fear carrying with us the traditions and values we have inherited. Instead, we should embrace them, allowing them to give us the strength and hope needed to face the challenges ahead. Traditions and family are not relics of the past, but living sources of inspiration and courage. They remind us that no matter how uncertain the future may seem, there will always be a place where we belong, where we are loved, and where we find true hope. In a world that constantly pushes us forward, it is essential to look back, to our roots, to the wisdom of our ancestors. Traditions and family are not burdens we must bear, but treasures we must protect and celebrate. They are the anchors that keep us steady in times of storm, the flames that light our way. By honoring our traditions and strengthening our family ties, we find a greater purpose, a deeper connection, and renewed hope for the future. Let us always remember that in a world that changes every moment, there are things that should never change. Let us value what truly matters and find in our roots the strength to flourish in any season.